Hi, welcome back to Ron Hasn't Seen. I'm Ron, and this week we are talking about The Apartment. The Apartment is the 1960 Best Picture winner by Billy Wilder. It stars Jack Lemmon as CC Bud Baxter, Fred MacMurray as his boss Jeff Sheldrake, and Shirley MacLaine as Fran Kubelik, an elevator operator in their building. It also co-stars Jack Kruschen as Dr. David Dreyfus, Baxter's neighbor. The film also won the Oscars for Best Director for Wilder, Best Screenplay for Wilder and IAL Diamond, uh, Art Direction in a Black and White Film for Alexander Troner and Edward G. Boyle, and Editing for Daniel Mandel. It received acting nominations for Lemmon, MacLaine, Kruschen, as well as cinematography for Joseph Lachelle and sound for Gordon E. Sawyer. It is also the last movie in black and white to win Best Picture until Schindler's List came along. And here to help talk about the movie with me is my friend Patrick. Hey, Patrick.
Ron, what's going on? I have not heard of the title of the series you're doing. I really like that. I know you were looking for something that kind of hits it and has a nice ring to it. I dig it.
So, the plot of the movie features a series of executives exploiting Bud to use his titular apartment to carry out their affairs and in exchange for the promise of promotion. Uh, Bud is really often excluded from his apartment at all hours of the night and left to clean up and supply booze and snacks for these guys. Uh, he is finally put up for the promotion to Sheldrake, but he just wants in on the scam. So he actually wants it to carry out an affair with the elevator girl, Fran Kubelik, who Bud is kind of secretly, well, not even so secretly in love with. Uh, but unlike the other executives' affairs, this one is an ongoing relationship. Who, when Kubelik is actually in love with Sheldrake, the others just seem to be either they know their affairs or they know their one night stands. But after one of her trysts with Sheldrake, Fran is depressed because she found out from Sheldrake's secretary that no, she's not special. She's just the latest in a series of girls that he's been doing this to. So she stays behind at the apartment after Jeff leaves and takes a bunch of Bud's sleeping pills. Bud comes home to find her, and with the help of his neighbor, Dr. Dreyfus, nurses her back to health over the course of 2 days. The whole thing is Dreyfus and his wife think Bud has been having all these affairs and parties himself and think he's this bachelor playboy, and they're kind of annoyed by him. And Bud plays into this to protect both his bosses and Fran, and he even goes as far as to take a punch from her overprotective brother-in-law when he finds her there after 2 days of being missing. The secretary also goes on to tell Sheldrake's wife about the affairs, and she leaves him. And so now he's going to actually pursue Fran as a full relationship. When Baxter finds out about this, he's had enough of being taken advantage and seeing Fran taken advantage, so he quits his job and he's about to leave the apartment. When Fran finds out what he's done, she just leaves Sheldrake and runs right to him, and we get the happy ending after a depressive movie. And that's the basic plot. I really knew nothing about this movie going in. I knew it was considered a classic. I knew it was one of the first modern films they say for the Oscars.
It
I hadn't
it
even seen a trailer, so I thought this was a comedy
Me
of
too.
Billy Wilder and Jack Lemmon because Some Like It Hot is such a great movie, and Fred MacMurray. You think it's going to be a really funny movie, and it's listed under whatever you watch it on. It's listed as a comedy as a genre, and there's some funny moments, but this is not a comedy.
No, no. I think I had like two laugh out loud moments, and that was it. This is obviously mentioned as a classic. I was actually, because I'm one of those elder millennials who tries to be cool, watching TikToks. And people are talking about it like it's a great four film run. Some of the great four film runs. Some Like It Hot, The Apartment, Witness for the Prosecution, Love in the Afternoon. I mean, these are classic movies. A 7 Year Itch, and I don't know where we're going with this movie. The performances are fantastic, but what's the point?
I think everything about the movie is good. I just didn't and I think part of it is you and I. You said you didn't know the story going in either. I had never even watched a trailer or anything like that. I went in thinking it was Some Like It Hot, and it's good in every aspect except it doesn't make you feel good.
No.
Uh, and the suicide plot in the middle of it just is a left turn out of nowhere, and it takes like a movie that could be considered funny and has some really funny moments and just makes it dead serious. So right before he finds her at his apartment is probably, I think, the funniest scene in the movie is Jack Lemmon is depressed about losing her to Sheldrake, uh, but he's getting hit on by this woman whose husband is in jail in Cuba. He's like a corrupt little like jockey, and she's all over him, and like it's just a funny scene the way she's hitting on him and he's just completely indifferent to it. At the very end, where he tells her she has to leave because he has to take care of it, he's like, "I'll tell my husband about you." Like, you're gonna tell your husband the guy you were about to have an affair with decided not to sleep with you? That's your threat? And also, he's a jockey. Like, I don't know if jockeys were bigger back then,
No, she
but
describes him. I honestly thought she was talking about Mickey Mouse for a minute, the way she was going on. He's a little 5'1". I'm like, what is happening in this scene? Why are we talking about Castro so much?
right. And like I know that's one of the things that's gonna like obviously this movie is completely from a different time. The creator of Mad Men, I forget his name, but he actually describes this movie as one of his major influences in designing the show and made the cast and crew watch it before they started.
Hmm.
And I
I
said
can
that to
see that.
Laurel.
Yeah.
I said that to Laurel, my wife, as we're watching it. I'm like, this feels Mad Men to me. I haven't watched a ton
Yeah.
of Mad Men. I watched a few episodes here and there, but the whole feel of it seems, the guys at the hitting on the secretaries during these wild office parties, all of that is in here. This movie, like 1960, so it really kind of is right from that bridge of that repressed 60s society into what we think, or the repressed 50s society into what we think of as that like kind of overblown, like out there 60s ness. And this movie kind of bridges that with some of these, all the conformist workers all
Yeah.
having these wild adventures afterwards.
And it seemed like it was trying to make a point about being kind of taken advantage of the corporation while still kind of towing the company line. I felt like Jack Lemon's character was such an everyman, and my goodness, is he a good actor? Like, he just steals every single scene he's in. Your eyes drawn to him. His delivery is fantastic. He was such an everyman that was getting beaten down by his bosses and taken advantage of. I texted you. I said there has to be a hook here. Is it like a company apartment? Is it he got that somehow through nefarious means? Is there blackmail going on? I expected a little more rumpus action, but no, it's just he did something out of the kindness of his heart once, and then it got taken advantage of continually.
And then he thinks he could use it to take his advantage, and he does.
Yeah.
So the whole plot of all these affairs is based off a few, like an old script that wasn't used because they couldn't make it under the old Hollywood codes, because people were having affairs and they weren't like getting punished for them, so that wasn't being allowed. Uh, and there's like some different stories that, I think Diamond knew of, like Hollywood murders for people having affairs, and one of his friends or somebody in Hollywood tried to commit suicide because of an affair. So a lot of those things were taken and put
Wow.
in this movie, which was actually written for Lemon to be that kind of put on every man, because Wilder and Diamond had worked with him already in Some Like It Hot, and they're like, this he's great for this, and let's try and recreate that success. And they did. I mean, over its course of its run, it made like something like 8 times its original budget, and I think it was double its original budget on its initial release in the U.S. So it had a $3 million budget. I think the initial run was about 6 million. What I saw was about 24 million total. In the re-releases like they used to do. And the other one is McMurray. He's one of the reasons I thought this was going to be a funny movie. I always think of him as a family funny man. Like, we grew up on like the Nick at Night era of stuff with like My Three Sons,
Yep.
and then all of his Disney movies like The Happiest Millionaire and all those. And like, he actually, like, people like were yelling at him on the street apparently after this movie because it's like, you're supposed to be the family man. What are you doing playing this d bag
Oh.
of a character, you know?
He did that also in Double Indemnity, one of Wilder's other movies, and those are kind of the only two times that he played a less than scrupulous character. Like you're saying, he was known as that wholesome family guy, but man, does he have the face and the attitude for this role. I hated him from Jump Street.
Yeah, but he is a great actor, and really deserves all the praise he's gotten over the years. But he wasn't even supposed to be Sheldrake. A guy named Paul Douglas was originally cast and then died of a heart attack just before filming.
Wow. Well, I think they got the best, and we kind of led this off talking about it's a comedy. I mean, this is such a morality play with occasional little bits of funniness here and there, but for the most part, this questions who you are and what you're getting from this film. There's probably some people who find themselves seeing themselves in the executives and that kind of I want to say John Hamm, but I know that's not the character's name.
Sheldrake?
No, from Mad Men.
Oh, Don Draper.
Yeah, and they see themselves as that Don Draper kind of figure. And I mean, myself, man, I saw myself so much as Jack Lemmon in that everyman role, and I think it hits differently for you depending on your status in life. Because I felt so bad when I got done watching this, so bad.
Yeah. I think that is all. I mean, that might be a part of the time, a time difference, and not knowing what it was going in. Because I'm assuming people knew a little bit more than we did, going into this. But it split critics as much as people praised it. Some people even called it like gleeful, tender, and even sentimental. And I think that was the New York Times review. Uh, and they called it ingenious. Well, I will agree. The direction, the movie, the story, everything about the movie is good. It just, I think gleeful is the absolute wrong word. But it does try at times, like even in like the darkest moment when they're trying to revive her from the suicide attempt, the play between Lemmon and the doctor is actually kind of funny. The way the doctor thinks he's this playboy, and it just lightens the mood just a bit. And I think maybe at the time they might have thought it was a little like they're not as aware of mental health problems and things like that at the time, but I don't think it could be considered gleeful in any way.
Also, I don't think slapping is proper doctoring.
I mean, that continued long after this. Is kind of
Yeah,
like
but that seemed excessive, didn't it? Was that comedy? Was that supposed to be comedy?
that's the thing. Like sometimes something goes on so long, it's funny. I was thinking of when I saw that scene, I was thinking of Airplane.
Yes.
I mean, that's where my mind went. And in Airplane is played that way for comedy because it just goes on and on and on. And I don't know if that was supposed to be one of the jokes. I think the jokes were more Lemmon and his interaction. I think the slapping was trying to wake her up. And I think, in a certain situation, if you don't have anything else, maybe that's what you're going to do still.
That
But
that
other,
that whole that whole scene is such just a like we were talking about earlier, is such a dramatic shift in the tone of the movie. You have this kind of, I'm not gonna say a romp, but it's kind of paced like that. It has the movement, it's going like that. You're getting this romp, you feel like you're building up to something. And I don't think we ever felt like we were building up to that. And then to try and bring in quite literal slapstick comedy, it just felt like such a slam on the brakes and cut that turn because it's I don't know. It just didn't fit in there.
I mean, the scenes between them when they're in the apartment of the 2 days of her
Oh my
recovering
god.
are
So good.
amazingly acted,
Yeah.
amazingly done, and sentimental is a great word. Bud trying, I don't think he's trying to protect himself. I think he's trying to protect her and protect his bosses because he has that loyalty to him. I don't even think he's trying to protect his job. I think he's literally trying to protect everybody else and take the rap himself. And one of the funny things is the punch apparently was the take where he didn't get out of the way of the fake
It
punch quick
always
enough, and
turns.
actually it was a real punch.
That's how it always happens. We were talking to someone from Race to Escape from Witch Mountain, and the punch that's in that is the one that got connected. I mean, it looks better. It's so hard coming
Yeah,
from a professional wrestling world. It is so hard to fake a punch. It is the hardest thing to do.
No, you have to do it like that's why you do it with an angle where the person getting
Yeah.
punched, you always see the back of their head or something like that. And the other one was he gets a cold in the movie from sitting outside in the rain. And I think they said like he caught a cold filming one of those scenes. So I don't know if that was in the movie or like in the original script or they just wrote it in. Because Wilder is like when I was reading this was notorious for keeping everybody on script. And there was only a couple times because he's worked with Lemon before that he let him just go a little bit off.
When he's
The
out
movie
there
was
at night, I'm like, this is New York City. I know it's the 60s, but there has to be something you can go to, like an all night coffee shop, a diner, something.
we actually have the address of the apartment in the movie,
Oh, all right.
which is 51 West 67th Street, which is I don't think the address actually exists, but if you put it in, Google Maps will kind of tell you where it is. It's the corner of Columbus and 67th, which is a block west of Central Park and a few blocks north of Lincoln Center on the Upper West Side. I mean, that's one of the best locations I could think of to live in Manhattan. I looked up on apartments.com or was something earlier today to find out what a current apartment in that area would be for a one bedroom.
Okay.
What do you think?
All right. This is tough. So it has its own bathroom, which I know some units don't have. And it clearly had a separate bedroom and living room. So,
Well,
um,
today, what a one bedroom
yeah.
apartment, like a modern one bedroom in that area would be.
All right. So I'm going to go with 3K a month.
Close to double that.
No.
Yeah, a within a block of that intersection, I was finding one bedroom apartments seem to average about 5,500 a month.
Wow.
And
Wow.
we also know how much Bud makes because one
Yeah.
of the first things he says is he takes home $94.70 a week, which is about $1,000 today. So that apartment and New York real estate hasn't gone linear with like CPI and inflation. New York real estate
Yeah.
has exploded beyond that because at this time, people with money didn't really want to live in the city. This was the suburb boom time where everybody with money was moving to Long Island or to Westchester or to Jersey and then commuting in. And that's why all the executives are using his apartment because they have the money to go out and buy the houses. The apartments in the city were looked out, who wants this? I want the white picket fence.
Yeah.
So the apartments weren't what they were today. So I don't think the apartment would have been 140% of his monthly salary at the time, which makes a little bit more sense. But the location's great. It's currently the home of like a Starbucks and a Sweet Greens on that corner,
Of
and like a
course it's a
Sephora type
Starbucks.
store. Of course, it's a Starbucks, right?
Yeah,
The
of
only thing like,
course.
is there a Dwayne Reed across the street? Because that would be every
Absolutely.
intersection in New York.
Yeah.
Uh,
So what you're talking about that they wanted the white picket fence and the home in the suburbs, but for a movie that's in the 60s, they talked a lot of trash on Jersey that I expected to be a more modern thing. I didn't expect it to be like a 1960 thing with New Yorkers trashing Jersey, but I guess it's evergreen. I would think you want that prestigious location, be able to walk to work, but I get it. You have your family out there, and this is like the whole double live thing. Your family out there, oh, I'm working late, and it's having your cake and eating it too. And these executives took such advantage of him for that. Um, it wasn't even that nice of an apartment. You think you'd want to stunt with something a little bit nicer?
I was thinking like, why aren't these guys like just chipping in and renting a place themselves? Uh, I
Or
mean,
a
obviously
hotel?
hotels weren't what
Yeah.
we think of modern hotels. Like I think either had like basically like hostel almost kind of places, and I can be completely wrong in this. Obviously, I was not alive and I haven't exactly studied lodging in the '60s, but like I got the impression from things like either had really kind of like seedy places or the plaza.
Yeah.
Like there were no in between hotels. Like we were just starting that whole road trip culture in this country. And I don't know if people were going to visit New York or going places from New York.
I think you're probably right. Wasn't much of a hotel, but apartment. Get one that's the company's. That's what I thought this was. I thought that was going to be the joke. Is that he lives there because it's the company's house and he has to vacate it whenever they want it, and that's kind of the deal. But no, it's
And
just
I
his
think
apartment.
if you did a remake, I think you'd have to do it that way. And I don't want to see a remake. I don't think they should do a remake
No.
As much as I'm not going to sit down and watch this movie again anytime soon, it's a damn near perfect movie again for
Yeah,
what it is.
shot composition's beautiful. It's the last black and white film to win an Oscar. So
Yeah,
I thought that was really cool. But it's beautiful. The Everybody is acting their pants off. They all know the role that they're there to play, and it's a great movie, and it flows pretty quickly. Like it didn't feel it was it 2.5 hours. I felt
it
it
didn't
moves really
drag.
quick. No, it moved really quick. I think a lot of it was because I'm trying to figure out what is next. What this really reminded me is that I haven't watched How to Succeed in Business without really trying in a really long time, and that's where
Yeah,
this took me.
my wife Laurel brought that up.
Yeah.
I've seen parts of that. I've never actually seen the whole movie. I've listened to some of the music. It's never been my favorite, but maybe I'll get to that at some point on here. Tonal wise, and the more modern thing, what it really felt like to me coming out of it was American Beauty, which had
Mm.
its moments of comedy, uh, but it's a more dramatic movie with more of the sad ending as opposed to this gives you the happy ending after all this. But like tonal wise, that's what I got was this comedy and depressing all interwoven together. And the depressing is just about, the malaise of life.
I can see the American Beauty comparison. I'm actually really happy they gave us the happy ending, um, because I felt it would have been really disingenuous to not give that to us. There's a lot of times that the whole, subvert the genre, subvert your expectations. They don't give you the happy ending because it's rote and you think people are waiting for it. I would have been furious at this film if I didn't get that happy ending, because
No,
you saw the connection between two individuals and you wanted what you thought was best for those two characters. And a more depressing ending, man, wow. I couldn't imagine like if she just went off and actually, killed herself, or if he did, if either of them committed suicide. Like I thought that bang where the tone of the movie at the end with the champagne was what Fran thought it was, that it was, a gunshot. And I smiled a big smile when he opened the door with the bottle of champagne.
I think this movie earned its happy ending, and I think if it didn't give
Yes.
it to us, no matter how good this movie was, I don't think anybody would have praised it because I think it would have just been depressing and like I don't know like how 60s audiences would react to something like that. That would feel like a 90s indie film kind of ending. Like Chasing Amy where everybody hates each other by the end of things.
Sunset Boulevard's not a happy ending per se either.
But is it I haven't watched the whole thing. Like I haven't ever really watched like that era of musicals. Like I'd say pre-Sondheim musicals are not my thing.
Yeah. Sunset
But
Boulevard's
like
fantastic.
is
Fantastic.
it
And it
depressing throughout like this?
yeah, kind of. It's mm,
Well, it's Wilder too, so I mean,
yeah, yeah, that's why I brought it up. This I'm not too familiar other than people discussing it and saying that they're important films with his style. And I know he worked with Lemon a lot, and I know he worked with Shirley MacLaine a lot.
Wilder is up there with like Hitchcock. He
Yes.
really is, as those
Yeah.
legendary directors. I think Hitchcock became more of the household name because of his show, and I think because he stuck to a genre. I mean, I just talked about Rebecca last week, and everything for him was some sort of psychological thriller. Wilder is all over the place, and I always thought Wilder was a little lighter than this because, in my mind, it's Some Like It Hot. I know he's done these other movies, but Some Like It Hot is just always stuck in my mind. Maybe that's because it was from film classes I took. That like, oh, this is one of the first great comedies, you know, kind of thing. So, I mean, really, let's just come down to it. Like, I think we both said I don't know if we're gonna say we love this movie, but I love what the movie did, what it is. Like, it's not a story that I'm gonna come back to again and again because it's not fun. No matter what, I mean, it ends in a good way, but it's not a fun ride to get there, and it's a very tough ride to get there. I mean, the suicide attempt is extremely realistic, extremely from a place you could see somebody doing. It's not an over the top like someone like trying to jump off a ledge or hang themselves when the fan comes down. This is gritty and real and depressing, and everything about like McClane's acting and Lemon's acting, like it's worth watching for those things, but don't expect to enjoy yourself.
Yeah, you can see the importance of something and how good it is and not necessarily like it and want to revisit it. I'm glad I watched this. I'm not happy that I watched it because I was not happy even with the ending and just got a small smile. But it's an important movie. It's beautiful. That's what really struck me, is how just great it looked through and through. It made me want to watch another Shirley MacLaine movie. We talked about it that we kind of only knew her as the person who was into Your Next Life and that kind of stuff. What's the name of that, Ron?
Reincarnation.
Reincarnation. She was the
I mean,
reincarnation lady. Yeah.
and she was just in like she was through Downton Abbey. Like she's active, but like I just remember like growing up as an '80s kid, she was the butt of a lot of jokes,
Yep.
and seeing her here in her prime and just a gorgeous prime,
Oh my goodness. Whew. Whew. Something like that, huh?
like
Wow.
like I that's never what I knew her for. And so one of my mantras for what I'm doing here is I can distinguish with something I like and something that's good. And this is somewhere in between. This is definitely a good movie. And I like the movie. I just don't know if I like watching the movie, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes total sense. One of my favorite films for a long time was American History X. And I saw that movie once and I was good. I did not need to revisit that. This is a fantastic movie that you're not going to get a ton of enjoyment out of. If you really like acting and you're a big into old Hollywood, Jack Lemon's a tour de force in this, and so is Shirley MacLaine. You can enjoy their performance, you can enjoy the cinematography. The message of it might resonate with you that you can only push the everyman so far, and he's eventually going to push back. But see, watching someone so funny and so lovable get beaten down, and then to almost not wind up with a happy ending, I just felt like it was so far from being ripped from me. I'm I said before, I'm so happy that we got that happy ending because it was earned and I needed it. I needed that as a palate cleanse. So you can, feel really good about it and say, "Hey, I never want to revisit that again." But dynamite job, Wilder.
Yeah, so that's kind of our review of The Apartment. Great movie, doesn't make you feel great, but definitely worth watching once. Thank you, Patrick, for coming on. I'll hope to have you on again.
Oh yeah,
I know you wanted to be on previously, but couldn't make it, but glad you finally did.
I'm so excited. I like watching stuff that I should have seen as well. So, anytime I can watch something new, I'm all for it. This is a really fun thing you're doing, and I think it's really cool. I hope you get some little oomph of views for you.
Thank you guys for watching Ron Hasn't Seen, and I'll see you next week. Bye.